Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of the Creator's Log. My name is Carlos. Today, we're going to be talking about something that has been bothering me all day. Like I said, this is a real time creator podcast. Every time I make a mistake, I'll be giving you guys an update on all the mistakes or situations that I encounter along the podcasting journey. And today, one of the things that I notice that could be a downfall for a lot of podcast creators, new podcast creators, is procrastination. It's not just a word that I hate saying, it's a thing that I hate dealing with. It's the same thing when it comes to writer's block. Some people say it doesn't exist. It does. Sometimes the block is not because you don't have an idea. It's more the fear of putting that idea out there. And I feel like that is the same situation when it comes to podcasting. Like I said, I listened, I read, I saw, I viewed dozens, if not thousands, of YouTube videos on podcasting. And sometimes a lot of information is bad. That's why I wanted to create this specific podcast. I'm trying to create a network for a community, uh, not just physical media, but culture when it comes to arts, books, and the fear of putting myself out there. I guess the ideas that I want to put out there, how they're going to be viewed. I guess even right now that I do have an app that keeps me I wouldn't say grounded, but in line with what I have to do next, which is Notion. I'll speak about that app later in another episode. Is about organizing. And lately I've broken that rule of going by what is scheduled weekly in that app. I've been doing other episodes that have nothing to do with what was listed in the to-do list on Notion, and because of that, I've my brain has been a little bit scrambled, and I'm like, I have to get back to what was originally planned because that is what I said I was gonna put out there. That is what I want, I would say, achieve, first, just to get an audience and let them get to know me a little bit better. And I've been scrambling with one of the episodes for my other podcasts because I would say not just the fear, but the overexposure to so much podcasting advice that right now I don't know where to record that episode. I don't know how to start my intro. I don't know if to do a little commentary before I even put the intro song and then just start with my episode. There's a lot of ideas that are going through my head of what I want to do that it does not allow me to sit down and actually start recording. Ironically, this one's much easier because this is again the mistakes and the what I encounter along the way, the stumbles, to put it that way. But right now, like I said, the procrastination comes more from the fear of not being perfect and not just on the podcast in itself, because everybody starts like they say, like somebody's first episode is not gonna sound like their 100th episode, but we are also in a place that people have consumed so many podcasts, especially the last episodes of shows that have been podcasting for years, and they're like, "Oh, that quality is great." And you might be like, "Well, my quality is not gonna be like that." And they're probably gonna judge me based on what they've been hearing lately. They're not gonna go back on that person's episodes and be like, "Oh, wow, like this podcast that I enjoy now started very crappy." And then a lot of people don't do that. I tend to go back on older episodes once I finish, if especially if it's a show that is bi-weekly or monthly, I tend to go back on older episodes just to, see what they were putting out there. and not so much for judgment. I've heard some that were very bad at the beginning, but I know their quality now is actually good. But because we also have all these softwares, voice enhancements, and all this AI stuff, you think that people would expect your podcast to actually sound entirely professional from the beginning. And what one person said to me once was I was at a bookstore and I was looking for books on how to write. And I already have I literally have almost every book on how to write. I read them all, and even the Stephen King book on writing, I read it. I took notes, I took advice, and when I sat down and I saw the white empty page, I was scared. The ideas are still in my head. The ideas are still in my notebooks. All those books, all those characters are living in my head, in my notebooks, and what the bookseller said to me when I asked them for any book, any good book on writing, he said, "I can sell you all these books and you're not gonna write. The best way to learn how to write is to start writing." And that's the same thing with podcasting. My other podcasts are about films, are about physical media, Blu-rays, DVDs, and I follow a lot of YouTubers, a lot of podcasters that create podcasts on those same topics. And I was like, how can I differentiate myself from them? A lot of them are sponsored. A lot of them will upsell you the DVD or the whatever they were sent from the promotion, boutique labels, or I know a lot of you might not know what a boutique label is because you're not into films, but it's more like a small independent, I guess, seller. They restore their films, stuff like that. If you know of movies and you know Criterion and that kind of stuff, they get stuff sent and then they just push it out there. Same thing with a lot of podcasters that say they want to help you on podcasting, and then 5 minutes through the episode, they're like, "Oh yeah, I use this pro thing that helps me how to manage my stuff from the beginning to the end. I just hit record and somebody else does something for me. The system does something for me." And then when you look it up, it's like $100 per month, and you're like, "Yeah, I can't even afford $100 mic." So you're probably recording on your phone, and you're like, "I thought this was an advice of how to podcast for an indie podcaster." And you're watching their YouTube videos and you're listening to their podcasts, and you're like, when are you going to get to the advice without selling me something? There are two people that I want to recommend when it comes to podcasting. If you're podcasting with RSS.com, you probably get a lot of advice emails, which I suggest read those, watch the videos. Joe Casabona, he is one of, well, he calls himself the evangelist. I thought he was an evangelist for a minute. I was like, I don't get what the word meant in that context. But he is one of the YouTubers for RSS.com. I highly suggest you watch his videos, at least take the advice from your point of view, how it's going to help you, not how you think is going to necessarily like make you a pro from the beginning. Remember, we're all starting and we all start from somewhere. The other person, and I have to look it up here on my phone, which is a podcast. Right now, he is doing a daily podcast, is the How to Podcast series. I believe his name is Dave, and he has like a small community as well for podcasters. You can share your episodes and, amongst indie podcasters like ourselves. So again, that's the How to Podcast series, howtopodcast.ca. That's the website if you want to check it out. It's a very advice-driven podcast. Obviously, if you're hosting with Buzzsprout, they have their own. If you're hosting with Captivate, they have their own. Right now, I moved to RSS.com. Later on, I'm going to give you a little bit advice on the hostings. I did go through a few, which was also part of the procrastination, I would say, phase. I didn't know if to put something out there, how to put something out there, even though I had all this knowledge and advice from all these podcasters. I do listen to a lot of podcasts about podcasting. I'm not gonna lie, which, like I said, sometimes a lot of information is bad. And to start off, once you get your host, try to listen to the podcasts that they put out. A lot of them don't put out too many, which is why I kind of moved away from them, because some of them I wasn't even getting a welcome email, let alone an advice on how to start podcasting on their platform. So, like I said in my intro, it felt very alone. And until I met, until I found community of podcasters, because you can go to YouTube and every time you post a question or a video or your podcast intro and you want feedback, you're gonna have these guys that look, they came out of Wall Street saying, "Oh, I can make your podcast famous." I don't need my podcast to be famous. I just need to find the right people who want to listen to my podcast. A lot of people don't want to listen to a podcast about films, and that's okay. But that is what I'm creating my podcast for. People who like films, people who like to collect films, people who like to hoard films. My podcast is not going to look like your podcast. I went to Suno. I looked for people to create my art. Some people were charging me an eyesore for an art, a thumbnail art that they were doing with Canva. And I'm like, but you're literally using this. I'm paying $20 for Canva. I could do it myself. I just want something different. I don't want the same art that everybody else has. So some people resort to AI for certain things. Don't do it for everything, because sometimes AI can be a little stupid, especially when it comes to advice on what to do. They're going to research the entire internet. Again, just create your own s- season before you even start podcasting. Just sit down, outline what your season is going to look like, come up with 10 episodes at least, or six. I started with six. So far, I'm almost at 10 episode ideas. Have I done any of them? Not yet. Because again, perfectionism is always a downfall. And right now, I put an episode out there. Some people are giving me a great feedback on the episode. They understand it's my first episode. Some people are saying, "Well, the quality is good." Some people are saying, "I love the music intro." I wasn't too satisfied with it, because when I did my trailers, I was using Adobe and I was able to do a great intro. My intro flowed easily into my conversation. I used the script and I tried using Riverside, and the flow, the ease of the intro song going into my voice, my segment wasn't as I wanted to. It was like a cut and then I started speaking. So I'm not too well acquainted with how to do that on those yet. Somebody told me what I did, and I'm like, I did the exact same thing you're telling me, and it still didn't work. So obviously, I'm using the program wrong. But before I lose my before I lose my point here, I was trying to be perfect on getting the trailers out. I was trying to be perfect on getting the last episode out that I was so excited to talk about for that podcast, and I just decided to just put it out there. I was like, you know what? It is my first full episode. It was about 10 minutes long. I really enjoyed doing it. I really don't care if people liked it or not. And back into the procrastination, because I feel like at this point I'm just talking to also procrastinating on doing what I need to do. Sometimes, like, we tend to delay things because they feel personal to us. Like, again, we are putting ourselves out there. We are putting our voices out there. Some of you are doing videos, which creates even more pressure to put stuff out there. And perfectionism is going to be an excuse to not do something, to never finish something. And you're never going to get something done. And if you don't finish it, in your head, it's like, if I don't finish it, then I don't fail. That that itself is not the mindset you want to start podcasting with. Now, I want to try to keep these episodes as short as possible, because again, I just want to take you guys through my podcasting journey. And I was afraid of judgment because I don't see myself as competing with other podcasters. I don't see myself as competing with people who do podcasting on physical media. And I was afraid of the judgment. I was afraid of like, oh, what is this person going to talk about that is new that I haven't talked about before? Well, my point of view on films and collecting is not the same point of view that you have. And like I said before, not every podcast is gonna sound the same. Not every podcast art is gonna look the same. And not every podcast host is going to tackle podcasting the same way. Podcasting is evolving, is pretty popular. And yeah, a lot of people are doing it, but they're also doing it their own way. You just have to be confident on what you are putting out there. Just believe on what you're putting out there. I believe one of the advice was record it for yourself. Record it for yourself, keep it, listen to it. Because again, listening to your own voice, it is kind of weird. There's a lot of weirdos out there that gave me compliment on my voice. I don't think they're weirdos. I just can't take a compliment. But I personally find my voice a little annoying. Other people like my voice. And, that is sometimes if they like your voice, that is great because again, you're going to be in these people's ears for 10, 20, 30 minutes. Sometimes if your podcast is about criminals, I guess those go on for like 2, 3 hours, which is too long for me. I like my podcast short, like my conversations. I tend to like my podcast less than 45 minutes. That is my time of commute. So if you have a podcast that is 2, 3 hours long and you're like, nobody's going to listen to it. Oh, trust me, a lot of people do. A lot of people tend to listen to 2, 3 hour podcasts. Just do what you're going to do. Even if it's imperfect, it's still better than not existing. You never know who you're going to meet that is going to help you with your podcast. You don't even know if somebody's interested enough to later on work with you on an episode. I did not know that until I did my first episode. And now there's a magazine that focuses on horror. And I love horror films. And that's the reason I created the podcast is because not just for physical media, but it's also to create my own community. And it is it is a small community, I would say, for people who collect films. There's a lot of them out there, but technically that is still a small community compared to other people who probably do sports. You probably can fill up a stadium with film collectors. I mean, you probably could, but it's gonna be a little bit more difficult because buying films is a cost. When you go to sports, unless you're betting, you can just sit there with your hot dog and your beer and have a great time. I mean, us movie people do the same thing. We sit down. I allow myself one hot dog a year. When you look into what's in a hot dog, you'll know why. But I sit down with my popcorn, with my beer, and I enjoy my films the same way that a sports fan enjoys their sports. But the way that sports gathers large communities, large groups of people, is different than the people that buy films. So you really can't compare yourself to a sports podcast, a movie podcast, a book podcast. Someone that said to me an idea about doing a book club, a podcast. And I was like, well, that's great because again, I want to build a network of different voices. And if I have a voice who wants to read books with other people and get together through audio and talk about books, then I wanna work on that. I wanna be able to put that out there. Don't let fear, because again, procrastination is just the word, but the subtitle for procrastination is always fear. It's always trying to be perfect. It's always trying to put something out there that is already ready for an award. And a lot of people will also give you advice on, oh, when you start out, send your podcast to awards. It's a great way to put your podcast out there. Again, you're already afraid to start. Don't think too far ahead about submitting your podcast to an award show. I mean, you're not gonna win an Oscar just because you're going to acting school. That is the best example that I can say. You're not gonna be Meryl Streep, maybe you are, but nobody knows that. Nobody knows you're Meryl Streep. Nobody knows you're, Antonio Banderas with a great accent. But until you put yourself out there, people are not gonna find you out. They're not gonna know who you are. So just let the fear of creating and being judged, put that aside. Just grab it back when you're finished. Once you put your podcast out there, once you put your episodes out, then the fear can settle in and you can be and it's not gonna be as bad as you think. Trust me. A lot of people who do this understand not everybody starts at the same level. You're not part of NPR. You're not part of MSNBC or MS Now, whatever they call themselves. You are not part of a network that can send your audio out and have it edited in a way that is cinematic and people have an orgasm in their ear. You're not gonna have that. Let's be honest. Unless you do have the money, in that case, sponsor my show. But if that's the fear that you have that people are gonna judge you because your podcast doesn't sound good, because your podcast is not it's not well done. Again, like I said, my ideas right now in this episode are a little bit all over the place because procrastination can be so many things. But one thing, don't allow it to stop you from creating. Creating while being scared is still creating. I'm terrified to put the reason why I started collecting films, my personal story, before I even have guests on. I have a long list of guests that I want to have on my episodes. Some of them, thankfully, are taking a chance with me because they know me from Instagram. Again, my idea for the podcast was to take that community that I have in Instagram, people who knew me, people who I lost an Instagram account that had thousands of followers, and I had to start from scratch. Uh, I was afraid to start from scratch because I was like, what if these people think that this is a fake account? They followed me on the other one. All of a sudden, I disappeared because I got blocked. Because again, that is the thing with social media. You can lose everything in a minute. With podcasting, this is you. This is you creating something. Unless you don't pay your monthly bill, you're gonna be there. You're gonna be active. Your word is gonna be out there. And letting that fear of people thinking like, why is he back after he lost the other account? Like starting from zero. Like he had a blue check mark. He has to pay for the blue check mark. I don't care. That it's my Instagram. I did lose amazing pictures that I took. I lost a lot of friends from other countries that I'm still searching for that were gonna help me in this podcasting journey. But thankfully, I still met a new community and found my old community. And a lot of them are willing to come on to my episode and help me as guest to talk about movies, to talk about collecting, to talk about small business. That is what I wanted to create. And sometimes I feel like the fear in my head is like, I don't want to let these people down because the reason I created this podcast was to put them out there, to put these people out there, these people that deserve to be heard, these small businesses that people need to visit. That is the reason I created that podcast. And that's my biggest fear. I don't want to let those people down. You are going to find your crowd. And I'm just going to sum this up to just, again, just create. Even if you're scared, just create, put your stuff out there. Look up the two podcasts that I've mentioned, Joe Casabona from RSS.com and the How To podcast series with Dave. He gives great advice. He has a better voice than I do. And don't be looking for coaching. Don't be looking for gurus. Just try to focus on yourself. Take the advice that fits you. Take a general advice and just mold it to what fits you. And if you, again, have money and you can outsource everything, hit me up. I'll send you my recordings and make me sound like a Steven Spielberg movie. I would appreciate that. Go out there, create, let your voice be heard. This is the Creator's Log. See you next time.